Welcome everyone to our Skyhooks class. I'm glad you're all joining today to come here and learn about Skyhooks and how we can rob them. I will say this is the first time we are running this class. I have just put these slides together over the last few days, so this is a new concept. Things might not be as polished as some other classes you've been in, but I think the core content here is solid and there's a lot we can talk about. So yes, we are looking at how to rob Skyhooks, or as our whole campus calls it, skyhooking, which I didn't want to put in my title, but apparently putting it in my subtitle is fine. Sure. So to get things started, our basic class rules, please make sure you are set to push to talk or have yourself muted. I believe this Discord channel forces you to have push to talk set. So if you're muted, that's probably why, because you don't have that set up. No worries. If you have any questions during the class, you can come off mute and you can ask verbally. If you don't want to do that, you can also type in the chat. We have a classroom chat. If you look at the classroom alpha that we're in, there's a little chat icon right next to the name. You click on that, it'll open up the chat. I have that open on my second monitor, so I'll be watching that. We'll leave some time at the end for Q&A, but yeah, feel free to interrupt me during the class if there's anything you want to talk about during the class. And this class is all done here in Discord. You do not have to be doing anything in game, so you can be logged off or you can be doing some high sec mining or something or whatever you want to do. Just stay safe. I should note too, I am recording this class, but I have it set up to only record my microphone for audio. So if you do speak, you probably won't be on the recording, but I'll confirm and block anything out just to be safe. And if you ask questions, I won't say your name. So don't worry, you'll be completely anonymous in any recording. Okay, so I want to start with a disclaimer, first of all. Skyhooks are new to the game. Skyhooks just came in within the last few months, and there's already a lot of drama surrounding them. CCP has already said that they were going to do a big rework of Skyhooks. They're going to change the way that Skyhooks work and change how robberies work. They said they were going to do that in late August. So they're like a month late for doing that. So Skyhooks have not changed since then. So we're okay for now. But last week, in the last patch, CCP did say the change is now coming in October. Now, I don't know if October means it'll happen next week, or if October really means Christmas time, or October could mean spring. Who knows? We don't know when the patch is coming. So my disclaimer I want to say is that we are watching this right now on September 24th, and this is the way the game is right now, but it could change within a week. So just be aware that this information might go out of date soon, so pay attention to patch notes. That all being said, let's jump into some content. What are we looking at today? We're going to talk about what Skyhooks are, why you want to rob them, the big questions. We'll talk about what you need to rob a Skyhook, what's necessary there, and I will walk you through step by step what exactly you have to do to rob them. And we'll end with a Q&A. For those of you that attended my bank robbing class before, I had a video for that one. I do not have a Skyhook robbery video yet. I was actually just on a Skyhook robbery about a half hour ago, but unfortunately we had some resistance, so we didn't get to finish it. So I don't have a video of how it's done, but I do have a bunch of screenshots and I'll talk you through it. One sec here. Okay, we will continue on. So starting, what is a Skyhook? Skyhooks are new structures that have brought into the game in the last few months. They came in with the Equinox update, which was back at the start of summer. They are used to collect PI resources in Sovnull. So they are in the sections of nullsec that are owned by corporations or player-run corporations. What that means is that you will not find these in our uni NSC home because that is NPC null. It's owned by NPCs, not by players. They collect PI resources. There's 4 different types they collect. We'll talk about that in a sec. From what I've heard, they cost around 11 billion ISK to buy or produce and to anchor them. So they're a little bit costly. You know, that's not a big dent in the pockets of some of the big nullsec blocks, but they're expensive. And they can only be anchored in soft null, as I said. They collect 4 different resources: power, workforce, gas, and ice. These are all used to power a lot of the new changes that are coming to Solve Null. This Equinox update that happened this summer changed how things in Solve Null are powered. So things like their Sino beacons, their Ansiblex jump gates, and even things that give them more combat sites or more ore sites. All those nice things we don't have in NPC Null, they get through power, and they get that through Skyhooks. Of those four types, I want to specify only the gas and the ice are robbable. We cannot rob power, and we cannot rob workforce. So we can only rob a few of them. If you're curious to learn more about Skyhooks, there is a wiki article on them that's got a fair amount of details, so you can go read that on the Uni wiki. There's some good info there. So they've got these Skyhooks out in Solve Null. Why might you want to rob them? Well, when you rob Skyhook, you are pretty much guaranteed that you are either going to get a fight or you're going to make some good money out of it. There's a chance you'll make not good money, but that's slim generally. It's usually worth your time to rob one from a time perspective, and they are very hotly defended. So if you're on a fleet and you're looking to get a fight, going and poking a Skyhook's a good way to make them come and defend it. You can rob a Skyhook solo. I'm going to put a big asterisk on this and say it's not a great idea if you're just solo boxing. If you're dual boxing or more, it's doable. We'll dig into this in a few slides. But technically, you are able to rob a Skyhook solo. Doing it as a fleet is a much better call. We'll talk about that later. There's the chance to make great ISK per hour. We're going to talk about the ISK on the next slide, but as a whole, Skyhooks can be very lucrative. I went out one night and in an hour and a half, I made 1 billion ISK in just 90 minutes there. On another night, in the same amount of time, I made about 500 million. If anyone has been on the Skyhook robbing fleets that we've had the last few weekends, you know some of those made multiple billion in the hours they were running. So there's a chance to make some really good money out of robbing Skyhooks. Chance, not guaranteed, but a good chance. Like I mentioned earlier, they're also a great way to get a fight. If you are on a fleet or if you are out just looking for some fights in nullsec and nobody's coming to fight you, all the Ishtars are just docking up right away and everyone's hiding. If you go and start robbing a Skyhook, they'll probably come because they want to defend that and not lose that money. And Skyhook robbing is doable any time zone and in any part of Solve Null. So you've got a lot of choices for where and when you can do it. I wouldn't recommend doing it in 1DQ during peak EU time zone or US time zone. But, you could do that if you wanted. But I've found, going out into renter space and into the quieter parts of Solve Null during off time zones can be really lucrative, personally. So, I talked about making money. That's the big question, right? How much money can you make? The amount of money you can make robbing Skyhooks is highly dependent on when the last time they were emptied. The way a Skyhook works is it starts pulling resources from the planet. And as it goes, the rate increases exponentially. So what that means is after 1 day, there might be 100 mil in there, but after 2 days, it might be 300 mil in there. After 3 days, you might have 750 mil. These are all just abstract numbers. Don't take those as concrete. It's just to say that the longer that it goes without being emptied, the more it's worth. Because of this, owners don't want to empty them super frequently, because if they're emptying it super frequently, they're never getting that exponential gain. But at the same time, if they don't empty it too frequently and we come along and rob it, they'll lose more. So there's a big trade-off for the owners of a Skyhook on when the best time is to empty their own Skyhooks. There is no way for us to know when the last time a Skyhook was emptied or robbed as well, unfortunately. So when you go to rob a Skyhook, you don't know. This Skyhook might have nothing in it. It might have 3 billion in it. You don't know until you've finished robbing it. So it's a bit of a gamble. It's a nice mystery. I'm not going to call it a loot box, but it's, a box of mystery loot. So from what I've seen and from what I've talked to other people that have done robberies, we would say the average is somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 300 million ISK. I robbed one Skyhook once that had 9 million in it. There's a person in local who told me they had emptied it within the last couple hours. So he even told me, don't rob that, I just emptied it. but I thought he might be lying to me, so I stuck around, and yeah, I only got 9 million out of it. Um, if anyone saw the screenshot or was on our first Skyhook robbing fleet 3 weeks ago, yeah, we got one that had 3.1 billion ISK in it. We also got one that had 1.7, one that had 2.4, so you can get ones in the billions of ISK. Those numbers are not normal. Those were neglected for a while. I have probably robbed over 30 Skyhooks at this point, and I would say most I've seen are in the 200 to 300 mil range. The people in our wormhole campus, they do a lot of robberies as well, and they said that those numbers kind of track with what they've seen. So you can get a jackpot and end up with billions, but you should expect that you'll probably get 2 to 300 million out of an average Skyhook. It takes 10 minutes to rob a Skyhook, but a big benefit if you have multiple people is that you can rob more than one at once. So I know one old Unista, Shuken Taketsu, if anyone remembers him, he runs 4 accounts at once. He robbed 3 Skyhooks at the same time in a system. So he had 3 robberies going on at once, and he made 500 million just by robbing 3 at the same time because they all had like 150 to 200. And he did that in 10 minutes, maybe like 15 with extra travel time. So you can do that. Wormhole Campus likes to do this as well, from what I'm told. They like to split up and divide and conquer within a system. This can also be good because this makes it harder for the response fleets. So if you're robbing 3 Skyhooks and they come in with a few ships to kill you, they can only go to one of those, or they have to split their forces. Yeah. So takeaway from this slide is you can make good money, but it's not guaranteed. You might get low money. It's a bit of a luck thing, but so far it's been quite good. So what do you actually need to rob a Skyhook? I went through a few versions of this slide. I was going to talk about fits, I was going to talk about specific ships, but I thought I'd talk more about the tasks that need to be done here. And then we'll talk about what you could use for them. So first up, to actually do the robbery, you have to have a cruiser or an upwell hauler to link to the silo. So you cannot rob a Skyhook if you only have frigates with you. You need at least one cruiser to do the stealing, or one of the new upwell haulers like a Squall or Deluge. You need something to shoot the silo and to kill the rats. So there are rats that will appear there that you have to deal with. You could just tank through them. That's okay. That's an option. But you do need something to actually shoot the Skyhook itself. We'll talk about what that is later, but yeah, you need something that can do some damage. You also need something to deal with the PvP responses or some things. You're not always guaranteed to get a PvP response. The one night that I said I made the billion from solo robbing, I was out in Imencia at like 3 a.m. game time. I saw nobody there. I was there for over an hour. I saw one person in local, and that was somebody else robbing from ESSs. So I didn't get any PvP that time, thankfully, because I was alone. But generally, people are going to come and respond. So the Skyhook I was just robbing with some friends 45 minutes ago there, they came in with a Curse, a Hugin, and 2 Orthrus, and they attacked us there. So again, you can provoke a fight this way. There's a question in chat, a cruiser specifically, or anything cruiser and larger? That's a good question. I believe larger works as well. So you could bring a battleship, you could bring something like that to rob as well, if you wanted to put more ISK on the field. And lastly, you need something to haul the loot. So when you rob an ESS or a bank, the loot is very small. Any ship could hold that. When you rob a Skyhook, you're getting some very weighty loot. It takes up a fair amount of storage space, so you need a hauler of some kind. I think the new haulers, the upwell haulers, are really good for this. I use a Squall myself. I know some people use a Deluge because that can warp cloaked and is a little safer. It's a little more expensive. I've heard some other haulers can work as well without the specialized holds as well. So basically, you need some kind of ship that can link to the silo. You need something that can shoot the silo, and you need something to haul the loot. I'm going to say right now, you can technically do this solo with one ship. If you fly a Squall and you fit missiles to the Squall, you can go out and you can rob a Skyhook by just flying the Squall to the Skyhook, shooting the silo, robbing it, picking up the loot, and leaving. I will say, please don't do this though. It's a very bad idea, as you're stuck there, you're a sitting duck, it's very slow. You will probably die doing this. There's a chance it'll work for you, but it's very risky. I did it once, and I did that when we had a fleet in system ready to respond. And yeah, I had 2 ships warp in and try and kill me. Thankfully, the fleet came and saved me from them. But yes, you can do it solo with just 1 squall, but please don't do that. Like I said, you can use the squall or deluge. In terms of fitting, when you're building out your squall or deluge, I would recommend you fit on a cloak, a nullifier, a warp core stab, and give it some kind of tank. This will make it a little slippery so it can escape any gate camps, anything like that. And the tank is just, help survive. You can optionally put missiles on it as well. So, going from here, how do you find Skyhooks? Let's walk through the process now. We just talked about what you need to find a Skyhook, or what you need to rob a Skyhook. You need that cruiser, you need a hauler, you probably need some PvP help, depending on your risk. If you want to find some Skyhooks, you can use Dotlan. Dotlan has a filter for gas or ice. You can see those planet resources there. Of the 2 resources that you can rob, gas or ice, gas is far, far, far better. Gas sells for more money and it takes up less space. Ice is more expensive, or sorry, it's less expensive. Gas is better in size and in price. There's nothing wrong with robbing ice. Just know that if you have the choice between gas and ice, you should prioritize gas. Like I mentioned earlier, we can only do this in Sobnull. So when you're looking, if you look at, for say, example, our home in NSC there in Venal, that is NPC null. So if you look in that Dotland screenshot, there's nothing showing up. But when I look over next door in Tribute, you can see all these different colors. The colors are Dotland saying how many resources are in system. So if you look down there, that MTACO is bright red because it has 3,000 in system. The other ones near it have under 1,000, or FY has 1,700. This is the amount of resources that is being produced there. So this is how lucrative it is for the people that set up the Skyhooks. In theory, this should also mean how much is in the Skyhook in a way, but again, that will depend on the last time it was emptied. Quick note there that these numbers and colors are system-wide. So you see that MTACO says 3,000. So you think, oh, that's great, 3,000. That must be a really rich one. But if you actually look in there, it's the sum of all the planets in there. So MTACO actually has like 3 gas planets you can rob, I think. So it's not just 1 really good planet. It's 3 okay planets. So as a whole, the number that you see on Dotland will tell you what a good system might be, but it doesn't guarantee the planets within the system are good. You can look in game. If you go into the agency and you go to resource harvesting and then colony resources, you can use that. So for example, I took this screenshot when I was in the VNGJ system, and you can see on the right there all the different planets in there, and there's different icons. If you look at the middle part, you can see that they have 3-star power, 2-star workforce, and 3-star of lava. There is no ice being produced in this system. If you look on the right-hand side, then you see each planet. So you see how much each is producing. Planets give a 1 to 3-star output. So if we look in here, we see that there's a 2-star fire and a 1-star fire. When I say fire, I mean lava as well. So if I was in this system and I was going to rob, I would go to planet 1. Planet 3 will still have some, but planet 1 is a 2-star, so that's going to be better. 3-star would be the best, but there was no 3-star lava here. If you look in the middle, you can see what the ice logo looks like too. The next door system, ETAC-P, has some 2-star ice apparently. But yeah, so you can use Dotland from a broad sense to get an idea of where it's good to rob. Then when you're closer, you can use the agency. You can fine tune with filters to find exactly where you can find good ones to rob there. Once you are in system, you want to start looking at your overview. I will say Skyhooks are not on the overview by default, so you probably don't have these shown up unless you've seen one in game or manually added them. To add them, if you go to your overview settings, you can search Skyhook and add it in there. or if you just find a Skyhook in game, you can right click and select Add to Overview. Once you've done that, they'll show up just like gates and the sun and everything there, so as you see in that screenshot. There's one important thing to note here though. Remember from the last screenshot, there are some power and workforce ones in this system as well. And when we look at this, we see there's a bunch of Skyhooks. Some of those are not robbable. How do we tell? Well, we tell by that little asterisk that's in the corner. So if you look at the second one down, and then the 1, 2 under the encounter surveillance system, those both have that little star. That star means that a Skyhook is a gas or ice Skyhook and that it can be robbed. So of all these Skyhooks in system, only 2 of them are actually robbable. You cannot go and rob the others. So this is a good way. When you enter a system, you can just quickly look and see like, oh, there's 4 Skyhooks in here. Oh, but none of them are robbable. Or, oh, there's 4 robbable Skyhooks in here. They all have that little asterisk. Wonderful. This is something when I'm playing with friends that live in a wormhole, what we do. When we go out in the nullsec static, we just go and we look and we say, oh, hey, there's 2 we can rob right here. Let's just rob those. So you have gotten to the system. You found where you want to go. You found the Skyhook you're going to rob. You can warp to it right from your overview. Key thing to do when you're going is to make a perch. A perch is a bookmark that is on grid, but not too close. You want to make a perch that's warpable. So the way I do this is I warp to a Skyhook, I hit Control B, and as I'm about to land, I hit that submit button to create the bookmark. I try to make my perch bookmarks 2,000 or 1,000 kilometers off from the Skyhook. You want to make sure that you're far enough away that if enemies land, they're not going to just instantly land on your ship. And you want to make sure you're far enough away that you can align and warp still. So if you're only 170 kilometers away, that might be too close for warping because you might hit 150. So the way I do it, like I said, when I'm landing, I make that bookmark. I automatically make it in a shared folder. I do this with the cruiser that I'm flying, and then I have the squall warp to that bookmark 2 minutes later. The way shared bookmark folders work is when you make a bookmark, it shows up for you instantly, but other people don't see it for about 2 minutes. So as soon as that bookmark shows up, then I bring the squall in, and I put the squall on that perch, I cloak it, and I have it aligned to the Skyhook. At this point, your squall should be safe. It is sitting cloaked. It's a couple 100 kilometers or a couple 1,000 kilometers away from the Skyhook. If someone comes in and kills your cruiser, no big deal because your squall is still sitting there safe. This one slide is one that not many people know about, but it's something important to cover. Skyhooks can technically be offline. So the people that run them, maybe they forgot to refuel them, or maybe they turned them off for some reason. Again, I've robbed over 30 of them, maybe over 40 even, and I have only ever found one that was offline. But there's nothing that tells you it's offline while you're robbing it, and you just won't find out until you hit the end of 10 minutes and nothing happens. You don't get any loot. So I wasted 10 minutes once, so I make sure I do this every time now. When you're on grid with the Skyhook, when you're within range of it, if you open that radial context menu by long holding, if you go to the plus on the right, and then at the top, you select a more info button, that will open up an info pane and it will show you if the Skyhook is online or offline. There's probably a way to do this with right-click menus somewhere. I haven't found it yet, but there might be a way you could find this out somewhere else. This is something, when I talked to the wormhole people about this yesterday, they were surprised by it. They had never run into this as an issue before. Again, most Skyhooks will be online and you don't have to worry about it. But this takes 5 seconds to check and it might save you 10 minutes of effort. So I just checked them now just to make sure that that says online and not offline. You'll also notice in that screenshot, it shows at the bottom that it is producing 13.6 per minute. That can tell you a bit of how lucrative it's going to be. You see that's a 2-star gas one. So I guess that's the rate 2-star gives. Okay, so you found your Skyhook. You made your perch. You have checked it's online. How do you start the robbery? When you get there, you will notice there are two things you can lock up. There's the Skyhook itself, and then there's something called the reagent silo. The reagent silo also will not be on your overview by default. The first couple times I needed to get it, I just control clicked in space and I dragged a box around the underneath part. The reagent silo is underneath the tube on the front. If you shoot the Skyhook itself, that is just like shooting a structure. It has millions of HP and it has a reinforced timer. And we're also not allowed to do that in Uni because that's considered like attacking a structure. So you don't want to shoot the actual Skyhook. You want to make sure you're shooting the reagent silo. So you see the reagent silo there. You see it's got its full shields and everything. You need to lock that up and start shooting it. It doesn't have a lot of health. It doesn't take a long time to get down. Once the reagent silo gets under 10% shield, you'll see that button, Initiate Theft Link, will turn clickable. So basically, you just need to lock up the reagent silo, shoot it, get it down to 10% shield, and then you click that Initiate Theft. After that, you can stop shooting it. It can go above 10% shield and you still keep stealing. That's fine. Usually I turn my guns off at this point and I go and I look at the rats because there's usually rats on grid to shoot. Again, takeaway here, do not shoot the Skyhook. Shoot the silo. And you can find the silo in space by control clicking in that area under the tube. So you got there, you've shot the silo, you got the silo under 10%. You click that theft button. What happens now? As soon as you click that button, you get a debuff that stops you from warping, cloaking, or going faster than 1,000 meters per second. So you cannot escape, basically. This debuff lasts you for a full 10 minutes. If you try and run away, you still will have the debuff. That debuff will stick on your ship until you are done robbing or until 10 minutes is up. You cannot just fly away from it. You're stuck with it. So this is why I say you should not do the robbery in a squall solo, because you are putting your squall at risk all that time. I've seen people do this in a caracal, for example. I've done it in a Vexer before. I've been using a Thorax to do it lately. So you can do this in a cheap 20 million cruiser. Buy a cheap cruiser, use the cruiser, have the cruiser link up, because it will probably die. If anyone enters system, they can just warp to you and kill you right there because you can't run away. This is also why I say you want to have a fleet with you, because then your fleet can do the PvPing. There is a ring that is 30 kilometers around the Skyhook. If you leave that ring, the robbery will cancel, but those debuffs stay on you. So you can say, oh no, I don't want to rob it anymore, I'm going to run away. So you cancel the robbery, you're still stuck. You can't do anything. You're screwed. When you start the robbery, a ping goes out in the system you are in. So everyone that is currently in local with you, docked up or not, will get a ping that says, hey, someone's robbing this specific planet. After 2 minutes, so when there's 8 minutes left, it will then ping one system next door. When it is 5 minutes left, it'll ping another system that is 2 jumps away. So if you are robbing and there are people within 2 jumps in any direction, they will probably find out. Again, this is why I say PvP response is important, because people will come to defend it. Oh, wonderful. Someone pointed out that you can add the reagent silo to your overview just from the celestial filter. Wonderful. Thank you for pointing that out. When that ping goes out as well, it specifies the exact system, the planet, and the pilot. So here's a screenshot when I was robbing that one, so people could see. They could be in the next system over and they could see, oh, look, Tomlin is robbing Planet 1, and he's going to be there for the next 10 minutes. So this person can then ping on Discord, say, hey guys, log in, come on, come help me kill this guy. And they can come over 8 minutes later and kill me. So there's a risk here, and anyone within 2 systems might find out that you're doing the robbery and come and try and kill you. Again, this is why we do this with friends. This is just to show you that ring. So that ring is 30 kilometers around the Skyhook reagent silo. It also extends vertically. I have broken it when I went just past the top of the structure. I haven't broken it to the bottom, but I assume it's similar. I just keep the reagent silo locked up the whole time, and if I get above 20 kilometers, I try to get back in closer. This can be annoying because there's rats on grid with you, and sometimes the rats will be outside of the ring. So you'll be sitting there in your ship just having to be shot at by battleship rats that are outside the ring. In that case, you ask your friends to kill them, or you just tank them. Gotta figure it out. And this is not my screenshot because I forgot to take a zoomed out one, so I took that from some blog. So you found the system, you found the Skyhook, you got your cruiser there, you shot the silo down to 10%. You're doing the robbery. What do you do now? You wait. You got 10 minutes where you're not going anywhere. So you may as well kill the rats. I like to start robbing before I kill the rats because killing the rats can take a few minutes. So you may as well shoot the silo, link, then kill the rats. Once the rats are dead, you just kind of hang out. Keep an eye on local. Watch your D-scan. Look for people coming in. Again, if you are the one robbing, there's not much you can do to escape. But at least you can tell your friends they're with you, like, hey, there's people coming in, so they can get ready. One thing you can do, if you have a fleet, is you could rob multiple at the same time. So this is what Wormhole Campus does at times, and this is what Shukin does that I mentioned earlier there, is just start robbing multiple in the same system. There's 3 Skyhooks in there you can rob. Sure, rob them all at once. That's great. All you need are a cruiser at each one to do the robbery. You can come pick up the loot after. So you sit there, you rob for 10 minutes. Okay, nobody came, you survived. Your squall or your hauler should be sitting cloaked somewhere, preferably on a perch. Usually when there's about 10 seconds left on the robbery, I decloak my hauler, make sure it's aligned and ready to warp. When the timer hits 0, a loot can drops. It drops somewhere in that big old ring. If you are doing the robbery itself, it might drop 30 or 50 kilometers from you. So it can be far to get to if you're in a slower ship. This is why we have the squall sitting on that perch. So the squall is out there sitting 500 kilometers away. That loot can drops. The squall can warp to the loot can directly at 0 right away. So you have your squall warp in, you loot it, and then you can just get out of there. When you loot it, you just get like that. This is my screenshot of that beautiful 3.1 billion robbery we got. Oh, so good, so nice. As you can see, that 3.1 billion at the time took up 20 M3, or 20,000 M3. So again, you need a hauler. You can't just rob it and store it in your Vexor or your Caracal. You need a hauler to hold that kind of weight. So yeah, the robbery finishes. As soon as the robbery is done, the person doing the robbery, the cruiser, they can warp again. They can do all that. You cannot actually cloak in that ring, I should add. That white ring that you see around the structure, you cannot cloak in there. So if you are having cloaky friends hanging out with you while you're robbing, just have them sit right outside the ring, cloaked up. So loot can drops, you warp to it, you get the loot. At this point, I just get the hauler out of there. The hauler has the loot, I warp it back to a safe or a perch, I cloak it up, and then we figure out what to do next. So yeah, get your loot safe, make sure the squall is somewhere cloaked so that you know you can extract. And this then becomes a decision game, do you want to keep going? The fleet you're with, do you guys have energy to do more? Are things looking good? Or is it time to go back and extract your loot safely? Because your squall can be cloaked up and go from a safe to a perch to a cloak and everything the whole time, you're generally not risking much with the squall. When you're jumping gate to gate, there is a risk that you might jump into a gate camp or anything. So if you are going to gate to a new system, I would just recommend that you have somebody scout ahead for the squall. Again, I like to put a nullifier and a warp core stab on my squall. So even if there is something on a gate, it can warp out of a bubble and maybe get away from a point. No guarantees, but generally you should not lose the squall. You might lose your cruiser that's doing the robbery, but your squall should survive. You have to decide how you want to extract. The way I extract when I'm doing mine is I just go through Podfin. I take a Podfin filament, I go there, I scan down a high-sec wormhole, and I go back to high-sec. If you're doing wormhole stuff, maybe you go back in the wormhole that you came out of. If you're doing like our fleets did a few weeks ago, we just gated the squall into low sec, right? We were robbing systems right next door to low sec that had NPC stations. So we just got the loot from there into there. Whatever works best for your situation. You can asset safety the loot. So you can just drop it in a hostile structure, then asset safety, but that's going to take a big cut of your profits out. So I would recommend not doing that. Just keep your squall cloaked, even if everyone else in your fleet dies. Just keep your squall cloaked and have it solo go into Podfin at the end, if need be. So yeah, make sure you always have Podfin filaments in your squall, would be a lesson there. And Jita is the best spot to sell the loot right now, though if you have an alt in a Sovnal Corp, or if you have friends in Sovnal Corps, they might want to buy the loot directly from you. I don't know what kind of diplomatic incidents might come out if they find out you robbed from them and sold to them. That's on you. But yeah, I just sell the loot in Jita. I will say prices have dropped in the last few weeks for gas. With some of the changes that came in the patch last week, it caused gas to become a little bit cheaper and not as lucrative, but it's still worth good money. And right now, there's all sorts of speculation on in a couple months if it'll be worth more or less, because all these changes that happened to Sovnal with the Equinox patch in summer are not finalized yet. There are still some features that have not come online. They're going to come online in the next couple weeks or months, and those will require gas. So it's possible gas prices will go up because there'll be more demand. It's possible they'll keep going down because they're not needed right now. Who knows? I just sell it now. I don't speculate. Oh yes, final reminders. So this all could change as soon as next week. Like I said, this information is accurate as of today, but this could change anytime. They said that they would do the patch in October, so in October you might see this change. So my recommendation is if you want to try Skyhook robbing, get some friends and do it sooner than later. Don't wait a week or two to try it sooner. If you're looking for friends to do it, Wormhole Campus runs them often. I know that. I think for a while they were doing them daily. They were pinging about them even. Yuri Levnik is running a couple fleets this weekend, and he said one of them might be a Skyhook robbing fleet, if you're looking for some action there. You can always just try and get some people together to rob them as a group too. And I think that is about the end of my content. I realized I didn't really talk about my robbery style in here as much. I kind of talked about it a little. But yeah, when I was talking about myself doing solo robbing, I mean I dual box that. I take out a cruiser and a squall, and I just take a noise filament. And I hope that the noise filament takes me somewhere quiet. If it takes me to a busy area, I just wait out the timer and I noise filament again until I'm somewhere quiet. Then in the quiet system, I put the squall in a safe, I cloak it, I have the cruiser go, make the perch, do the robbery. Then I get the squall on the perch. When the loot drops, I warp the squall to the loot. So that's my way of doing it, dual boxing. Again, this is a dangerous way because I just have the one cruiser there. So like I was killed by a retribution when I was making the screenshots for this. I think if I go back, yeah, right around here. Not long after I took these screenshots, a retribution came in and killed my cruiser because I was doing this solo, right? If I was doing this with a group of 5 friends, that retribution wouldn't have tried anything. So there's risks to doing it in small groups. But as you get more people, you also have to split the loot. So it's all a matter of how much risk you want to run. I see a question in chat. The patch today. Yes, I looked at the patch notes today. I don't think they affected Skyhooks. So we're still good now with no changes there. Okay, and that comes to the end of the class content itself. So I'm going to open up the floor now for any Q&A you have. I am going to get the feedback link as well. Like I said, this is the very first time I created this class and have taught it, so I would love any feedback you can give. But I'm happy to answer questions in the meantime as well, too. Okay, so yes, There are changes coming, so is it possible this won't be doable in the near future? So Skyhook robberies are still going to be a thing. Uh, CCP has said that Skyhook robbery is what they brought in, what they want to happen. But right now, there's a lot of complaints from the nullsec people that robbing is too easy and we're taking too much of their money. It's hard to feel sorry for them as they're printing ISK out there. But yeah, there's been some complaints and people aren't happy with the way the system works. So they are going to change the way that Skyhooks are robbed, but they are still going to be robbable. We just don't know how they'll be changed. So I don't know what we can expect to see. Maybe they'll make it that you need more chips to rob one. Maybe they'll make the rat stronger. Maybe they'll make the loot worth less. Who knows what they'll change? Just they are going to change something allegedly in October. We'll see if change comes or not. So yeah, some parts of this might be outdated in a week or two. So we'll see. There's a question. Do I plan to do any skyhooks in the next couple hours? Not me personally today. Some people might. You might be able to scrounge up some people though if you just ask around. There might be some people that could do some impromptu PvP. But I think after this, I've got some other stuff I'm going to work on today. And yes, I use a noise filament to go to nullsec. So for nullsec filaments, there's two types. There's signal and noise. Noise filaments take you somewhere completely random. You can end up in 1DQ or you can end up in the middle of nowhere, 100% random. Signal filaments take you to spots where there's been a lot of action recently, whether that's fighting or rat killing or anything. So signal filaments usually go to busy areas. For robbing, when I go, I don't want a busy area. I want a quiet area where there's nobody. So I take a noise filament and I hope that it takes me to a quiet area. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you land 2 jumps out from horde staging and you have to run away and hide. To go to Pochvin, there's a few different filaments you can use. I think the border filaments are pretty good for getting you near Senda. Sometimes I use Cryvelis and try and leave through Sakenta as well. If you look in the PvP Study General channel here in Discord, you will see there was a map or two posted earlier today about the best ways out of Pochvin. So I take a border filament in and I land somewhere near Senda. I safely gate myself over to Senda. I scan down a wormhole in Senda and I leave through that. And I'll end up 2 or 3 jumps away from Jita in high sec. That's my strategy. Okay, well, thank you all for coming. I appreciate you checking out the first time in this class. Again, please fill out that feedback form. It's in the Google, or it's a Google form that's in the chat if you up there. Again, first time teaching this, so I want to make sure that we're fine-tuning the content to be what's useful. And yeah, if you have any questions about Skyhooks ever, feel free to reach out as well. I don't think I'm an expert, but I'm someone who's done a lot of them in the uni, and I was the first person in the uni to rob one officially, so I think I know some stuff that could be helpful. But yeah, I will wrap things up there though. So yes, thank you all for coming. I appreciate it.